The Manhattan District Attorney's Office has been investigating Trump's alleged role in a hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels shortly before the 2016 election. The indictment comes while Trump is running to represent the Republican Party in next year's presidential election. I spoke with political analyst and Pacific University professor Jim Moore on Friday about the indictment and how it could impact the presidential race. Jim, we appreciate your insight this morning.
Good to be with you.
As a political analyst, do you see the indictment hurting or helping former President Trump in his bid to be the Republican nominee in next year's race?
You know, in terms of being the Republican nominee, it's probably going to be a wash or maybe even help him. Remember, he has a core group of people who are going to support him no matter what. They call him a winner from 2016. They consider him a winner from 2020, even though he didn't win, and they're going to stick with him. And right now, polling is showing us that that's about half of all Republican voters, which is more than enough to win the nomination. But the problem is, does that then get any more voters to come in? And so, for instance, when he moves beyond the Republican nomination, will it get any independents to come and support him? And certainly, will he be able to break off any Democrats? And so there's a number of Republicans who are looking at the Trump issues right now saying, you know, I think he can win the nomination, but I don't think he's electable in the fall. So I want to see if I'm going to support somebody else in the primary. And so that process is going on right now.
Given the Republican field of candidates is still forming, how could the indictment influence the Republican primary?
Well, right now, in the short term, all of those candidates who are either declared or thinking they're going to declare have basically come in and said, Trump is being railroaded, so that means that I'm also a strong Republican. Governor DeSantis is in an interesting situation. If Trump, for instance, decides not to go to New York, DeSantis, as the governor of Florida, would have to decide whether to sign extradition papers to send Trump to New York. And so there's all sorts of interesting things going on there. But their public side is we support Trump. But behind the scenes, they're talking to voters, they're talking to people who raise money, they're talking to big names in the Republican Party saying, does this mean that Trump is now so damaged goods that my chances for winning the nomination are better? And what do I need to do to strengthen that? So it's kind of a public-private thing going on right now.
Trump told ABC News last week over the phone that the indictment is an attack on our country. He called it political persecution, said they're trying to impact an election. Congressional Republicans have come to his defense. So have others who either are or are rumored to be running for president. What kind of position does this put them in defending a candidate they're possibly running against?
Well, it puts them in an interesting position. If, for instance, a trial happens and Trump is convicted, it's going to make them all look like they backed the wrong horse. And so they've got to take that into account. Chances are there will not be a trial before the election if Trump is the candidate going into November next year. But it also is something going on in the Republican Party. Right now, the Republican Party is all about Trump. It's not about what it was before Trump came along. It's not about lower taxes. It's not about strong foreign policy. It's not about any of those things. It's about Trump himself. And so the whole party is trying to figure out, when do we move beyond Trump? Ideally, when he decides to retire or not run. Or do we move beyond Trump because, in effect, he becomes damaged goods? And so those calculations are tough to make right now because we simply don't know how this is going to play out.
Even before the indictment, 3 top House Republicans were requesting information from Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg regarding his investigation into Trump. How unusual is this?
It's very unusual. In the United States, we have a system of federalism. So there's a national level of government, state level of government, local level of government. The national level of government simply cannot go to the local level of government and say, you have to allow us totally in to understand what you're doing and even influence what you're doing. You can't do that. And so it's very unusual for that to happen. It has happened in the past, but it's violating a lot of rules and norms. Not unexpected at all. And so we'll see the Manhattan DA who will basically push against that, and other local governments will push against those kinds of requests as well. But think about what we just went through with the pandemic. There were all those kinds of things. Do pandemic decisions get made at the federal level? Is it Anthony Fauci and the president? Or do they get made at the state level and the county level? It's that same kind of complex dynamics. And here, the power resides in the local level with the district attorney, not in Congress.